He's Mark Stewart, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel reporter covering the Wisconsin Badgers. It was a tough one at Camp Randall Stadium against Alabama on Saturday. 42-10. I don't think the loss itself is maybe that earth-shattering per se, but there's a couple things, the bigger picture. One is the loss of their quarterback, Tyler Van Dyke, which is obviously the big storyline coming out of this game. He tore his ACL likely. He's done for the year. And it's this idea that the Badgers just haven't looked good at all this season. They haven't overwhelmed the opponents that were perceptively easier, and they really didn't have much of a chance against Alabama. Let's start with Van Dyke. I'm just curious what your thoughts are there. I mean, they brought him in from Miami. It's a huge loss for him, and I know the team was hoping that guy could kind of be the difference maker that they maybe thought they were getting last year too when Tanner Mordecai transferred in. And now it's back to Braedyn Locke, who battled with him a little bit, but I don't think maybe has that athletic skill set that Tyler Van Dyke does. How big of a deal is this? I mean, it feels like the Badger season is kind of teetering on complete collapse here now that they've lost their starting quarterback and haven't even looked good with him. So like what goes through your head as you think about what's to come for the Badgers at the QB position?
Well, I mean, I to start off with, I mean, sort of the future is now. I mean, I think we kind of touched on it earlier, in one of our talks about, okay, Wisconsin going after these transfer portal quarterbacks, and is this going to be a yearly cycle? And now with Braedyn Locke pretty much going to be your starting quarterback for the rest of the season, we're going to see that play out right now. I mean, I think it's going to be pretty clear based on how he does if he's going to be able to handle the job, or if based on Van Dyke's what happens with Van Dyke, if he takes a medical red shirt, or if he decides, whatever they decide they need to go into the portal again, that there's based off what Braedyn does, we're gonna it's going to determine whether they go after another quarterback for the third straight year. But yeah, it's a big loss. I mean, I was excited and interested to see how Van Dyke was going to do against Alabama. You just kind of got the feeling that during the week that there were some things that maybe during the first couple of weeks that Wisconsin was holding back a little bit in the playbook, and that they were going to maybe show some things that we hadn't seen. Van Dyke gets off to a great start. I think he was 5 for 5, even almost, has a pretty good run on the run that he gets the injury on. And then it's, it has to be somewhat of a letdown for the team. And even though it sounds like they have they're pretty confident in what Braedyn can do.
And what do you think it is that Braedyn can do? He's been praised as this sort of savant, really. And you wrote about that at jsonline.com. He knows the playbook inside and out. He is a football genius to some degree. The way they speak of him makes it seem like he digests that playbook better than anybody quickly. He can diagnose. He's going to be somebody who doesn't make mental mistakes. But we saw, I mean, he's a shorter guy, got a lot of passes tipped at the line. We saw that against Alabama. He probably isn't going to be as much of a running threat as Tyler Van Dyke could be. And I think the question is, are we even going to be seeing him take shots down the field? He had a great rapport with Will Pauling. Will Pauling is great. I think quarterback should have a good rapport with him, the slot receiver. So that's promising. We saw that a little bit last year when Braedyn Locke filled in for Tanner Mordecai. But I'm thinking about this team and wondering if they can keep that bowl streak going, if they can have an above 500 record. I feel like that's what they have to target right now. I'm not sure I would be comfortable saying Braedyn Locke is definitely the guy to do that. What do you think of him in terms of, can he be that guy to lead the Badgers back to a bowl game at this point?
I mean, yeah, I know the coaches went and, said, hey, this is a 1A, 1B situation, but it does seem like, there might be, there's the potential for some drop off with Braedyn. Now, I will say Braedyn is a pretty confident guy. Sometimes when you talk to people, you can kind of feel like they're holding back on how good they really feel like about their command of things. And I just get the feeling like there's this quiet confidence with Braedyn that he's sort of been itching for this opportunity, and thinks he can really do the job. They are going to have to change up some things offensively. You know that a lot of passes getting batted down. they're probably gonna have to do some things with maybe moving the pocket in passing lanes, lean on the running game a little more. One thing Locke likes to do is, he likes a quicker pace where, he can kind of, get the wheels turning mentally. And, he flat out said during preseason camp, right after he lost the quarterback battle, that he feels confident in getting this team in the right play every time. So I'm interested to see what he does. I mean, we can predict all we want, but sometimes predictions are wrong. Sometimes guys get out there and they improve and they show us things that maybe we didn't see. I mean, we got to remember last year when he played, he was a redshirt freshman.
He had
And
never played before.
Yeah, he had never played since high school. He had sat out that year at Mississippi State, and then comes in as a redshirt freshman. And his numbers could have been better, but he did have a nice performance, nice comeback win at Illinois. That showed a lot of things. Doing that on the road. For the most part, he was solid. I mean, I think that would be the way I would describe him. He wasn't a guy that was winning games for you, but I don't recall him being the guy that was, making a lot of mistakes and things of costing the team too. So I think that's a good thing to build on for him.
Yeah, I mean, the advantage that the Badgers have is that he does have 3.5 games of Big Ten experience. You can't get that anywhere. So that's quality. Plus, they get this bye week here where they can sort of implement whatever new things need to get implemented with a different quarterback. They have this luxury of time before they go out west to face USC. This question, though, is part of the problem, and this is what was asked of Luke Fickell after the game, and I thought he handled it well. But the question of what does Wisconsin do well? And that sounds extremely pejorative on the surface, but it is a legitimate question I have. Like, what do they have that separates them from other teams, particularly teams in the Big Ten? Even if it's one unit or one player or one skill, I just don't know the answer. Legitimately, it's not a. I don't know if they don't, like, what is it? What do they have those assets, or is it just going to be like, look, if they're going to win games, they're just going to have to grind them out, get some breaks, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, if you had to pin someone down on what is the strength of this team, you would say the offensive line. And, Fickells kind of leaned into that a little bit a couple times when he answers questions and talks about putting more on that unit's plate. What does that mean? I assume that means more running and things of that sort. But I think the strength of this team is it's evolving. I mean, we're looking at a team that a year ago was 7-6. I think 2 years ago they were a 7-win team too. And so, to expect like there's going to be this huge jump, it doesn't usually happen that way. So I think, what is their strength? What are they going to hang their hat on? It's something it's going to evolve. This Big Ten season, they got USC going out there. That's going to be a tough game. But after that, they got Purdue, they got Northwestern, they got Rutgers. They have a chance to maybe build some momentum and maybe build an identity against teams that, right now probably aren't considered, the cream of the crop in the conference.
You started to hear some of the buzz, the negative buzz after this game. And again, 42-10 against Alabama. Yeah, it sucks. But you know what? Alabama, that offensive line, oh my God, they're all going to be in the NFL and all be great. Like, this is just a very difficult challenge. And it's true that everybody kind of was what we thought they were. Alabama is that good. Wisconsin is still a work in progress. But Luke Fickell has been here long enough now that there's enough of a sample where people are starting to get antsy. There's a lot of angles you could take with this. I think everybody bought into the buzz, myself certainly included, that this team would take a rapid transition into being a really good team in year one, certainly year two of Luke Fickell, to the point that they would be competitive with a team like Alabama when this game came around. They got Alabama again next year. I think, there was the sort of, not controversy, but do they go with Jim Leonard or do they go with Luke Fickell? They made it this dramatic change of pace to go with Fickell. Seems like it was the right idea at the time, but a lot of people that dissatisfaction is rumbling up. Right. How do you view Luke Fickell right now? Like, where do you think is there anything close to a hot seat yet for him, or an urgency that has something his team has to show to preserve his legacy and sort of his vibes for Milwaukee or for Madison's fan base?
I mean, I don't think he's on the hot seat personally because, Chris McIntosh, the guy who hired him, isn't on the hot seat. I mean, McIntosh just signed a new contract extension, got a sizable raise. So I think with McIntosh in place, and the fact that McIntosh is a football guy, and probably when he's looking at things, can look at things in a more detailed way than the typical fan would. I think he's going to give him some time. I mean, I think on the surface, Wisconsin maybe for a couple of years was doing better than, maybe overachieving a little bit, and some of the cracks in the foundation of the program that McIntosh was seeing weren't showing. So I do think, is Fickell on the hot seat? No, I can't imagine that right now. But I do think, ADs and administrators want to see progress. So one of Fickell's big things is his team playing its best at the end of the season? And we saw it last year. They did come on strong at the end of the year with, some wins against Nebraska and Minnesota, and then, playing well in the bowl game. Can they start playing better earlier? I guess is the question now, and it's a question that, really kind of, it's going to be hard to answer. I think it's going to be hard to evaluate Wisconsin this year, because depending on how Braedyn Locke does, because if Locke doesn't perform well, then there's always in the back of your mind, like, well, if Tyler Van Dyke was healthy, or what if Tanner Mordecai last year was healthy for the whole year? There could be this thinking that, maybe there's a little bit of snake bite going on with this program for the first couple years. James Thompson, another key guy. I mean, you talk about two guys that you couldn't probably lose. James Thompson as your most experienced defensive lineman, and your quarterback any year, your starting quarterback. Those are tough losses to overcome. So, for me, no, he's not on the hot seat, but the key is going to be continued progress and showing some improvement.
Badgers again have a week off here. They've got the bye week, and then it's back starting into Big Ten play. USC, traditional Big Ten power USC, will welcome in the Badgers on the West Coast. Mark, are you looking forward to a trip to California?
Yeah, it's been a minute since I've been out there. I was trying to think last time I was out in California. It's probably been 20 years. I think back in the day, the men's basketball team had a trip out to Pepperdine, which is a lovely campus.
Yes, it is.
And
Beach.
yes, and I think I stayed in Los Angeles and drove up to Pepperdine, however far that was. I don't think it's too far away from the airport out there. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And again, just seeing how is Locke, how will he do? He's going to have 2 weeks to prepare. He's going to be getting those number one reps in practice. Is that going to help? Are we going to start to see maybe a little different guy than we saw last year?
USC will have Michigan this week. They do not get the bye, so the Badgers will have that extra week of prep that USC will not. So we'll see if that plays a role as well. Again, Mark Stewart, everything he has at jsonline.com. We will be in touch again about the Wisconsin Badgers very soon.